Welcome, everyone. I'm Staff Sergeant Ryan Brewer. We have Staff Sergeant Kevin Paul with us today, and we are the creators of Military Trumpet Jobs, and this is Troop Talk. This time, we are talking to two wonderful musicians from the United States Navy Band in Washington, D.C., Senior Chief Musician Christopher Sala and musician First Class Thomas Eby. Howdy, gents, and thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having us, guys. It's a total pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for helping us get the word out.
Would you both mind telling us about yourself and your career?
Sure. I came up in a musical family, so I had a lot of really cool advantages in my house. Just instruments laying around and always just being encouraged to explore. But I also didn't come up the way a lot of professional musicians did, in that I didn't have any sort of professional lessons until I made it to college. I really enjoyed playing music in church, and that's where my improvisational beginnings happened. And I found that it translated really well to the jazz world. And when I got to college, I began to expand my palette of improvising abilities, as well as my range, which is what one of my main jobs is, to be more of an upper register player for the Navy Band. I went to Elmhurst College, which is near Chicago, and I did my undergraduate in music education. And from there, I went to the University of North Texas to study trumpet performance in jazz. And after that, I went into the working field in the Dallas area as a professional musician. And I did that for about 7 years before an opening happened. As you know, some of these jobs are really rare and you have to wait for one of them to open. So when a job opened up in the Navy Band Commodores, I was very excited about it and was lucky enough to win the audition. And here I am in DC in my 7th year.
And me, I guess I grew up in upstate New York, outside of Albany. My family moved to Massachusetts when I was in high school or 10th grade. But when I moved, I was really kind of moving toward the classical side just because I didn't have the opportunities jazz wise. I really wanted to go to Eastman, and that's where I went. And I was a student at Charlie Geyers. And then after paying for 4 years of Eastman, I knew I couldn't really pay for grad school. Florida State was reached out to me, Brian Goff at the time, and said, "Hey, you want to come to Florida State audition to be maybe in the faculty brass quintet?" And that was my assistantship there, was playing with the faculty brass quintet. And then I started a doctorate. I did my master's, started a doctorate, and I kind of had enough of the academic life and auditioned to be in a professional brass quintet in Boston, a group called Epic Brass. And then the group was, unfortunately, when I joined on, the group was already kind of winding down. So I ended up being in Boston and freelancing and teaching, driving all over the place. And I was ready for a change. And the Navy Band audition was not an audition that you would maybe recognize. One of my friends said, "Hey, would you like to come play for this section tomorrow?" And I was like, I guess I could play some stuff. I didn't really have anything prepared. So I drove up to Nashua and I played for the section, and I sight read the list that everyone had to have prepared. They'd had a couple auditions in DC and didn't hire anybody. So they were able to kind of hire me on the spot. And then I was off to boot camp. And I've been in the Navy Band now for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years in May.
So we have some questions for you guys. Our viewers really want to know, how are you planning to have auditions during COVID, and what's the environment going to be like? How will that change the nature of the audition?
So we are kind of taking the lead of the other bands by having a recorded round first. And that's something that we don't typically do in the concert band. I know that the Commodores have done some recorded first round, but it's going to be even more a tighter first round than we would normally have. We're going to try to get it down to a small number of people in a final round. And that's really to kind of keep our people safe and keep the auditionees safe. So it'll be an invite, and we'll have a date set at some point. And we will maybe do it over 2 days. And we will have people play for the concert band, and Thomas can speak about how the Commodores are going to do it. We'll have a round, semifinal round, and we'll do a 30 minutes maximum round per person, and then 20 minutes where everyone clears the space, and then back in for 30. So it's going to take a while, and that's part of the reason why we can only have it down. But we really feel it's important to have live audition. We still want to honor that in some respect. And then it'll be a final round maybe the next day.
For those of us in what we call the specialty groups, which would include the Commodores Jazz Band, it doesn't change a whole lot for us as far as the beginnings of it, because we always do a taped round first. It's very competitive to even get an invite to come to our auditions. But once the audition begins that day, or it might even take a couple of days, because it has to be one person at a time and everyone else has to be cleared out. So it could take a couple of days to do even less than 10 auditions. But the taped round is the exact same as it's always been.
So, Thomas, what kind of player would you say that you're looking for to fill your vacancy, and what types of qualities stand out to you the most? And we can have Chris answer it after.
Absolutely. The Commodore's vacancy is listed as jazz trumpet, and it's specifically an improvising chair. So we're looking for the highest quality professional jazz improviser of all styles, all eras. That would probably be the most important or an absolutely critical skill to have. But also sight reading and playing in section and correct jazz styles across many different kinds of styles. The Commodores is a big band, but we play a lot of styles of big band music across many, many decades. So really having a great grasp of all the different eras and the correct way of playing in all of those situations, as well as being an elite improviser would be the most important things for us.
Our opening is for a concert/ceremonial trumpet player. To me, some of the things that are real standout are tone, rhythm, just musicianship in general. I think there's kind of a misunderstanding that military bands are looking for someone that plays like a robot, and we don't want that at all. We want someone that's going to come in and show and tell a story through their music. And knowing the music ahead of time is really paramount to doing well in the audition. Going through and listening to those marches and listening to some of these band standard pieces will give you a good understanding of what styles are needed.
Very well said, Chris. Yeah. So we had a couple questions. What kind of gigs do the Commodores do and the concert band, as well ratio between concerts, ceremonies, and other jobs?
Yes, we're considered to be as needed for ceremonial duty at Arlington Cemetery, and it's always an honor when we get to do it. But our primary duty is in the Commodores at playing concerts. We do a significant amount of them, especially during the summers. As well as usually under normal circumstances, a 3-week tour. As far as other jobs, it's the same for the concert band as for the Commodores, in that we volunteer to keep the command running. We don't have a whole lot of civilian help. We do all of the jobs around the command ourselves. For instance, I work as a liaison in the auditions department, so I help get the word out to people. So I do that on my own time. I have been the unit librarian, making copies, making sure everybody has parts, working in public affairs or taking photos, working in the sound department. We all kind of help out in whatever ways that we are best able to keep all the jobs running and keep the command moving forward. So that is, it takes up some of our time, but it's definitely things that we choose to do and that we enjoy doing.
So in the concert ceremonial department, everybody but 2 of us are rotating between ceremonies and concert band. And so I am principal trumpet, and so I don't play as many ceremonies as the bulk of the section does. But you can be expected when you win the job. In my first 10 years before I was assistant principal, I was a rotating member of the section. And you can be expected to like at least a week of ceremonial work, playing Arlington Cemetery, playing retirements, any other patriotic openers that might be happening around town. And then the next week, it's roughly week on, week off, but that it fluctuates. Sometimes it's 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. You'll be playing on stage. And so it does kind of flip flop. And then the concert band side of things, we have a concert just about every week or every 2 weeks. Some of the big ones we have, big command productions, and then we have in the summer series. So yeah. And then as far as extra duties go, I am the concert master, which is kind of unusual from the back of the band, but that is one of my extra duties, to kind of make some musical decisions for the group and to kind of give some advice to some of the junior officers, and help out with that musical decision making and programming. And then I'm also the leading chief petty officer of the concert band, which is a lot of administrative, kind of like almost like the personnel manager.
So what are the eligibility requirements to take the audition, Chris?
So you have to be between the ages of 17 and 39. You have to be a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident. You have to have a green card and a social security with no stipulations. That's pretty much it. We in the Navy band, we do have a rule against tattoos. You can't have visible tattoos in a short sleeve shirt as a male or female actually, or below the skirt line.
You can't get a waiver for that if you have tattoos?
Not those specific ones. No.
We are also currently taking a previous military experience, so veterans.
So you mean prior service in the Navy or otherwise? Army, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard.
Correct. It could be any service, and as a musician or a non-musician, it doesn't matter. I think it's important to add that although many of the people we hire have significant professional experience, maybe are a little older, it is certainly not a requirement at all. And resumes are not taken into account whatsoever for Navy band auditions. It is solely determined by the player that day of auditions. So no previous experience is required, but sometimes those experiences can benefit an individual in the audition process. But it's certainly behind the curtain where we hear you, we would have no idea other than how you play that day.
You don't have to go to MUCS before the audition.
No, only if you win the audition would you go to MUCS.
So, how was basic training? One of the questions we got was, do you have to know how to swim?
I think I can take this one because I was there more recently. Basic training is not the most fun, but it's probably not like you imagine it from the movies. And Navy basic training is a little bit different than Army or Marine basic training in that a lot of it takes place indoors. So there is a lot of physical fitness and there's a lot of yelling, of course, and learning how to follow instructions to the T. It's 8 weeks long. You do have a swim test that you have to take, but they will teach you to swim if you do not know how. The swim test is not that difficult. It's a 3-part test. The first part is to step off of a high dive into the water. The second test is a swim across a very long pool, maybe an Olympic-sized swimming pool. You just have to swim across it at any speed you can go. And then the third test is to be able to float prone, on your back for 5 minutes.
Are you wearing your uniform while you're swimming and floating? Do they give you floaties?
We are wearing the uniform that I am currently wearing that day. And there's a whole way to blow this thing up so that you get an air pouch back here. And
wow.
Yeah, I guess it comes in very handy on a ship if you end up in the water to be able to use your shirt as a flotation device.
Or your pants.
Or your pants.
I got to ask, so if you can each tell me a ridiculous or embarrassing basic training story about yourself.
Okay, I'll start. I shouldn't say new. I'd been there for a little while, but I was new to this one position there, which they called ship staff. And so the ship staff people had to clean all the common areas. So it was one of my first times being on ship staff. And I didn't have a chance to iron my uniform before I went out on watch. And the light blue shirt was like the most wrinkle prone thing you've ever seen in your life. I'm out there for all of maybe 10 minutes, and an RDC comes barking up to me and, what the heck's wrong with you? You know, why are you out here with a wrinkled shirt? That shirt looks terrible. And he's like, I want you out here in front of the main office that they had. We called it the Shark Tank at 10 o'clock tonight, you know, to talk to me about this some more. I didn't go back and iron my shirt. I kept working, kept standing watch, and no one said anything. And at the end of the night, it's 10 o'clock. Maybe I did go iron a little bit, but I didn't do a very good job. 10 o'clock at night, I'm standing outside his office. He forgot about me. I stood out there for probably 2 hours at this point, and now it's after midnight. And he comes back and sees me saying, why are you still here? What are you doing? He's like, why does your shirt still look bad? And I kind of like, well, you told me to come here and be here and get to bed, you know, send me to bed. I want to see you tomorrow, you know. So that was my most embarrassing moment there. It's pretty bad. But
So when I went to boot camp, I was 34 years old when I went. A little bit older than your average recruit. Nearly everybody in my division was 18, 19, maybe 20 years old. So each of us are given a job to do, you know, whether it be to make the watch list or to be like a secretary for the RDCs, those kinds of, everyone was given jobs. Bathroom cleanup was a job. The job they assigned me was called Master at Arms, which is basically like a military police, like, you know, keep everybody in line, to give everybody orders, you know, make everybody do what has been told for everyone to do. But I had spent a few years as a high school band director. I taught for 3 years beforehand. And so my approach was a lot more polite than perhaps they were expecting or wanting. So I would very politely ask people to do what they were told, very politely ask them to follow instructions. And I was just raked over the coals for not following normal military procedure of telling people exactly what they're supposed to be doing. So I was immediately and promptly fired from that job of Master at Arms. And my RDCs very wisely replaced my job with the educational petty officer. So for the rest of boot camp, I taught class, which was much more up my alley, and something that I actually came to enjoy was teaching. There's a lot of testing, a lot of memorization of facts and information and Navy necessary procedures and protocols at boot camp. So I was put in charge of helping everyone pass the tests, which that job I could do well.
I mentioned that you guys were in Washington, D.C., but can you tell us a little bit about where you're stationed?
yeah, we're stationed at the Washington Navy Yard, which is right down by the ballpark, right across from the Marine Barracks. And it's what they call the quarterdeck of the Navy. And the quarterdeck is the most important part on the ship.
It's really a cool area too. My girlfriend, who now lives with me, she used to live in the Navy Yard, and it was a really cool area. Just a lot of new stuff and hip restaurants and fancy.
It wasn't 20 years ago. It was not that way at all.
I lived there my first year. My wife didn't know where to get us a place, so because I was at boot camp, so she just picked an apartment right there, and so I lived literally across the street from the ballpark. I could see in from my balcony. It was pretty amazing, right there on South Capitol.
I'm a big baseball fan, so I would have loved that.
Before the ballpark, though, man, it was
good stuff. I think that pretty well covers it. Before we go, thank you both for your time and insight. It's always interesting learning just how different and how awesome all the different military trumpet jobs are.
Thank you for having us both. It's been really a great experience to talk with you all and to compare our services for sure.
Absolutely a pleasure. I always encourage everyone to send in a tape. You can't turn down a gig you haven't won yet.
If you like our content, or even if you just like us, please consider subscribing to our content on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our YouTube channel, Military Trumpet Jobs, so you can always be up to date anytime a new audition comes out.
We hope that these videos help all of you with your audition journeys. We're always thinking of ways to provide all of you with quality content about military trumpet jobs, from recording excerpts, creating play-along backtracks, to talking to the top professionals in our field.
Huge thank you to our subscribers for reaching out to us with all your different questions. If you have any other questions or requests for new content, please reach out to us on any platform and we'll respond as soon as we can. That's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for listening, and happy practicing, folks.